Hello, this is Chris from Cali Raised LED, and today we're going to be installing our premium or economy roof rack. Included in your roof rack box are the following parts: 2 side panels, a rear valance, an LED cover, a front valance support, the front valance, driver and passenger front mounts, driver and passenger middle mounts, driver and passenger rear mounts, 2 rear valance mounting brackets, a rubber trim piece, and 6 extrusion bars. For your premium roof rack, you will have the option to purchase the following mounts: 42-inch light bar mounts for both premium and 360 racks, dual function LED mounts for both premium and 360 racks, side pod mounts for 360 racks. Included in your economy roof rack box are the following: 2 side panels, 1 front valance support, your front valance with or without LED cutout, driver and passenger front mounts, driver and passenger middle mounts, driver and passenger rear mounts, a rubber trim strip, and 6 extrusion bars. For economy roof racks, you have the following optional brackets: single row LED light bar mounts. We will now show you a breakdown of the following hardware kits that you will receive depending on your options: premium fairing hardware kit, economy fairing hardware kit, rear and middle mount hardware kit, premium rear fairing and miscellaneous hardware kit, side panel hardware kit, 42-inch dual row LED hardware kit, dual function or economy LED hardware kit, pod mounting hardware kit. For our roof rack install, we will need the following tools: a tape measure, a 10mm wrench, a 9/16 wrench, a ratchet to match our sockets, a long extension, a 9/16 deep socket, a 10mm socket, a swivel is a good addition if available, a flat screwdriver or small pry bar, a number 4 Allen wrench, and if installing pods or LED light bars, the Allen wrench that comes with your hardware kit. Now that we've completed our inventory, we can begin to prep the truck for installation. The first step is to remove the roof trim piece on both the passenger and driver side. To accomplish this, grab a screwdriver or a small pry bar, lift the front out where it clips in, then simply peel the trim piece back. It is glued on with double-sided tape. Please just continue to peel it back until it is removed. After removing your trim piece, you will need to expose the holes in the roof that come for your factory roof rack. To do this, simply grab a screwdriver and remove the sticker from around the holes. You will be able to see the holes by pushing down on your sticker and feeling where they're at. Once you pry it back and expose the holes, you can move on to the other positions on the truck. There are 3 positions on each side: 2 in the front, 1 in the middle, 2 in the rear. We are now going to begin the assembly of our premium front valance. To assemble the front valance, we need the following parts: our rubber weather stripping, our LED cover, our front valance support, our 2 front mounts, and our front valance. You're going to need a number 4 Allen, a 9/16 deep socket preferred with ratchet, a 9/16 wrench. You're also going to need the following hardware from your hardware bag: 2 small aluminum spacers, 4 bronze bushings, 2 3/8 washers, 2 3/8 bolts, 2 3/8 nuts. You're also going to need 7 of the 5/8 long 1/4 inch bolts, 2 of the 3/4 inch long 1/4 inch bolts, 2 1/4 inch lock nuts, 11 1/4 inch washers. To begin our assembly, take your 2 small aluminum spacers and slide them over the studs on your LED cover. Next, grab your 3/8 bolt. Install your 3/8 washer. Take your bolt and it will go through this hole on your front mount. Once the bolt is installed, slide over a bronze bushing. The front mount will now connect to the LED cover. Your stud will go through your slotted hole, and your bolt will go through the hole on the end of the LED cover. Taking your second bronze bushing, slide it over your 3/8 bolt, and then take your 3/8 nut and put it onto your bolt hand tight. You may need to wiggle the mount around to get this nut in place, but it will clear once you tighten it down. We will now repeat the process on the other side. Grab your 3/8 bolt, install your 3/8 washer. Push the bolt through the hole in the mount. Slide on your bronze bushing. Line up your front mount. Slide it onto your LED cover. Grab your second bronze bushing, put it over the bolt, grab your 3/8 lock nut, and install it hand tight. The next step is to install your front valance support and front valance. The flange on the front valance support is pointed down. Set the front valance support between the two front mounts. The holes on the valance support line up with the holes on the mount. Next, take your front valance and also put it into position right on top of the support and front mounts. Next, take one of your 1/4" bolts that is 5/8 long, put a washer on. You will line up the front valance and support and push a bolt through the both of them. Once the bolt is through, line it up with the hole on the front mount and put it in hand tight. We will repeat this on the lower position and on the other side. Put your 5/8 bolt into your washer, pushing the bolt through, and then line it up with the top hole on your front mount. Next, we will install the 3 front bolts on your front valance. Here, here, and here. Using the remaining 5/8 long bolts, install your washer and put into position hand tight. Next, we will put in our bolt and nut onto the top of the valance. Grabbing your 3/4" long bolt, install a washer. Put the bolt and the front mount. Then grab another 1/4" washer and a 1/4" lock nut. Install them on the back side. Moving to the other side, repeating the same process. With all of our hardware in place, we can now tighten everything down. The first thing we're going to do is tighten all of our hardware that's on top here. Using your Allen wrench or socket, simply tighten the bolts into the mount. Then tighten your nut and your bolt. Next, we're going to flip our front valance assembly over so we can tighten our 9/16 hardware. Using your 9/16 deep socket and wrench, tighten your 3/8 bolt and nut. It is very important that you tighten this just enough so that there is no wiggle room, but the valance can pivot up and down freely. We will now test our valance. Flip it over and move your valance up and down. It should move nicely and smoothly without too much force. If it falls down or moves loosely, add a little bit more torque to your bolts. If it is very difficult to move, loosen your bolts slightly. We are now going to assemble our Economy front valance. To assemble our front valance, we'll need the following items: rubber weather stripping, front valance support, front valance with or without LED cutout, and 2 front mounts. The hardware that will be used are 7 1/4" by 5/8 long bolts, 11 1/4" washers, 2 1/4" by 3/4" long bolts, and 2 1/4" nuts. You will need a number 4 Allen key and a 7/16 wrench. To assemble our front valance, we need to set our passenger and driver mounts about 4 feet apart. We will then grab our front valance support. Notice that the flange will be pointed down. We line up our front valance, then grab your front valance and put it into the same area. Now we can install our bolts. Grab a 1 1/4" by 5/8 long bolt and install a washer. Insert the bolt through your front valance, then through your front valance support, and install it into your front mount, tightening the bolt hand tight. We will repeat this same process for the bottom mount and the other side. Next, we will put in our 3 front bolts using the same hardware as we did on the side. Next, we will take our 1/4" by 3/4" long bolt, install a washer, and put this through the top hole of our valance and into our front mount. On the back side, we will install a 1/4" washer and nut. We will now do this on the other side. With all of our hardware in place, we can now tighten everything down. The final step for both the premium and economy front valance assembly is our weather stripping. The weather stripping simply pushes onto your front valance. We supply the weather stripping longer than your front valance so that you may trim it to length. To install your weather stripping, line it up with the edge of your front valance. Ensure that the weather stripping is not wider than your panel. Simply push it on and work your way from one side to the other. Once you near the end, your rubber stripping will be hanging off. Find the spot where you would like to trim it and cut off your excess rubber. Then install the rest of your trim. Now that we've completed the assembly of our front valance, there are 2 notes that we need to point out before we can move forward. After this point, the installation will be for both the economy and the premium roof racks. If there are any specific details for one or the other, we will point those out. The other note is your roof trim piece. On other companies' racks, they require you to reinstall the trim piece with notches for the bolts to go through the trim piece and into the roof. On our rack, the trim piece is an optional installation. If you would like to go ahead and notch your trim piece, there are many different methods to do this. We are going to skip past how to cut the holes in your trim. Please search for alternative methods to find out how to do that. Now we're ready to put our front valance assembly up on the truck. Before we can do that, we need to put our 2 large spacers in place. Simply put them roughly over your 2 holes on your roof so that you can set your assembly on top of your spacers. Do this for both the passenger and driver side. With the help of a friend, we will now put our front valance assembly up on the truck. Now we can install our bolts into the roof. You're going to need 4 of the long M6 bolts and washers. Put the washer on your bolt, put your bolt through your front mount, through your spacer, and into the threads on your roof. Try and get 2 to 3 turns, but leave these loose for adjustment later. We will now assemble and install our middle mount. You will need your 2 middle mounts, 1 extrusion bar, 4 1/4-inch bolts, 1/2 inch long. Very important that you get the 1/2 inch bolts or they will not tighten. You will need 4 of the 1/4-inch T-slot nuts, 4 1/4-inch washers, 2 M6 washers, 2 M6 bolts, and 2 of the large spacers. The tool that you will need for now is your number 4 Allen wrench. First, we are going to take our 2 T-slot nuts and install them into our extrusion bars. Notice the profile of the nut. The tapered part will go down towards the center of the mount. Put them in one side and then put them on the opposite side. Now we will install our middle mount to the extrusion. Notice the middle mount looks like a C. You want the inside of the C facing the outside of the extrusion. It does not matter which side the top is on, as long as they are installed on the same side. Taking one of our 1/2 inch long bolts, we install a washer, put it through the mount and into the T-slot nut. Tighten these hand tight. They are a little bit cumbersome to tighten on the truck, so do your best to get them down, but loose enough so that your mount can be slightly adjusted. Moving to the other side, installing the mount in the same manner, ensuring that our top tab is on the same side as the other side. If it was installed backwards, the whole assembly would look very different. Now that our assemblies are installed on the extrusions, we can put the middle mount up on the truck. Just as we did with the front assembly, we are going to put our spacers over our holes. Now we can put the mounts in place. Using our long M6 bolt and M6 washer, we will install the washer onto the bolt. We will then take our middle mount assembly, set it over our spacer, and install our bolt as we did on the front mount. Put your bolt 2 to 3 turns as we did on the front mount. Then move over to the other side and repeat the same process. This mount will set down low. Don't worry, when we put the side panel on, we will be lifting this up and putting it into position. A note about the orientation of the middle mount, it should be pointing towards the front of the truck. If the mount is hanging off the back side, your middle mount is backwards and you need to spin your assembly 180 degrees. The next step is to install our rear mount assembly. You will need 1 extrusion bar, 2 rear mounts. For the hardware, you will need 4 1/4-inch by 1/2 inch long bolts, 4 1/4-inch washers, 4 1/4-inch T-slot nuts, 4 large aluminum spacers, 4 M6 bolts, and 4 M6 washers. You will also need a number 4 Allen. Just as we did on our middle mounts, take your T-slot nuts and slide them into your extrusions. 2 on one side, 2 on the other side. Now we will install our mounts. Just as we did on the middle mounts, we will make it so the open side of the C is facing the outside of the extrusion. We will grab our bolts and our washers and put them in. With 1 bolt and 1 washer, we install the washer on the bolt, put it through the mount into the T-slot nut. Again, tighten these hand tight, but leaving them just loose enough for a slight adjustment. As we've done on the front and middle mounts, we will put our spacers in position. Now we will put our assembly in place. First, place your assembly on your spacers. Next, take an M6 bolt and washer and install the washer. Put the bolt through the mount and into the roof. Now that our middle and rear mounts are in place, we can install our side panels. For this, we will need our 2 panels. Pictured here are our premium 360-degree lighting panels. However, this works for all premium racks and our economy rack. You will need 12 1/4-inch washers, 12 1/4-inch bolts, 5/8 in length, and 1 No. 4 Allen wrench. Before putting up our side panels, it's easier to go ahead and install our washers onto our bolts so that we don't have to try and do this while holding our side panels. It is now time to put our side panel up. We will lift our side panel, align it with the front of the rack, and align it with our side extrusion. Then we will put 1 bolt and washer into position to help hold the side panel in place. Moving forward, we will do another bolt in the front mount. Remember, all the mounts are slotted so you can adjust as you go. If you see that the side panel is slightly contacting the roof in any spot, do not worry, we will make our left to right adjustments very soon. We will now put our second bolt into our rear extrusion, followed by our second bolt into our front mount. Moving to our middle extrusion, we will take our hand and lift it into position and install our 2 bolts. Remember that these extrusions are made out of aluminum. Do not force any bolts into the aluminum. If you are having a problem with the bolt threading in, you may need to repair the threads. Now we're going to install our front extrusion and optional LED mounts. For the front extrusion installation, all you will need is the extrusion itself, 4 1/4-inch by 5/8 long bolts, and 4 1/4-inch washers, and your No. 4 Allen. If you have elected to install an LED in your premium or economy rack, you're going to need the mounts that fit the specific light. Included in the light hardware kits are 4 1/4-inch by 1/2-inch bolts, 4 T-slot nuts, and 4 washers. Depending on which LED install, you will also get a light hardware kit for 42-inch dual rows. If you are using a dual function LED or a single row LED, you will use the bolts that come with the LED hardware kit. If you purchased an economy rack without the LED cutout or will not be putting your LED on at this time, you can skip ahead to the installation of the extrusion bar. We are now going to move into installing the LED mounts to the extrusion bar. The first step in installing your LED mounts is to hold them against your extrusion to see where the T-nuts go. In this case, there will be one in the front and one on the rear slot. Simply take your T-slot and slide it into position. Repeat this step on both sides. With your T-slots in place, grab a 1/4-inch bolt, install the washer, put the mount in place, and put in your bolts hand tight as we've done before. It is very important to ensure the flanges on your mount are on the outside towards the end of the extrusion, or you will not be able to access them later on. With your mounts in position, we can now install our LED. Put your LED between your two mounting brackets. Then, using your hardware, either the bolts for the dual function or the bolts given to you in your kit. For the Cali raised dual row LED light bar, you will take your M6 bolt, install your split lock washer, and then your flat washer. Once your hardware is ready, you can install it into the mount and your LED. Leave them hand tight. If you need to adjust your mount, simply slide it in the extrusion. Now that our LED is in place, we are going to grab our Allen wrench and we are going to tighten the light slightly so it does not move around when we go to install the extrusion bar. With our LED tight, we now need to center the mounts on our extrusion bar. Grab a tape measure and measure from the side of the mount to the end of the extrusion. Depending on the size of your light, these will be different measurements. Make sure that this measurement is the same on both sides. Once your LED is centered, tighten down your black 1/4-inch bolts for your mounts onto your extrusions. Your LED assembly is now ready to be installed on your roof rack. With our assembly in hand, we will go ahead and put it into position. If you have the premium rack with the adjustable valance, ensure that it is in the up position. If you have the economy rack, simply slide your LED into the cutout. Taking our 1/4-inch by 5/8 long bolt, we will install our washer, line up our extrusion with the holes, and insert our bolt. We are now going to install the rear extrusion on our economy roof rack. For the economy version, all we need is the extrusion bar, 4 1/4-inch by 5/8 long bolts, and 4 1/4-inch washers. You will also need your number 4 Allen wrench. Before we can install our rear extrusion bar onto our economy rack, we need to give our rack a slight adjustment if your Tacoma has the rear antenna. Simply grab your rack and slide it backwards to ensure your extrusion clears without hitting your antenna. Once the rack is moved to the rear position, we will install our bolts and our extrusion. As we've done with all of our extrusions, we take our 1/4-inch bolt and install our washer. We put our extrusion into position and then install our bolt. Repeat on both sides. We are now going to install the rear valance for the premium and 360 racks. Pictured here is our 360 rear valance. However, the standard will install the same way. We have one extrusion bar, one rear valance, two rear valance mounts. For the hardware, we will have 4 1/4-inch T-nuts, 4 1/4-inch bolts, 1/2 inch long. We will have 6 1/4-inch bolts, 5/8 long, 2 1/4-inch bolts, 3/4 inch long, 2 1/4-inch nuts, 12 1/4-inch washers. We will be using a 7/16 wrench and a number 4 Allen key. If installing the Cali raised 20-watt scene pods, you will also need 2 1/4-inch by 5/8 long bolts and 2 1/4-inch washers. To assemble our rear valance, we will flip up our extrusion bar and we will set our rear valance on the edge to locate the holes. Next, grab your T-slot nuts and insert them into your extrusions and put them in line with your holes. Next, we will grab our 1/4-inch by 1/2 inch long bolts. We will install a 1/4-inch washer, slide our rear valance over the T-nuts, and insert our bolts. If you're installing your flush pods, go ahead and slide it inside of your valance. And then on the inside bolt, there is already a thread in place. Go ahead and grab your 5/8 long bolt and insert it and thread it into the threads. Do this for the other side as well. Now we can rotate our assembly up and install our L brackets. Take 1 1/4-inch by 3/4 inch long bolt, insert it through the light and through your valance. With the bolt in place, grab your mounting bracket, slide it over the bolt, install a 1/4-inch washer, and then a 1/4-inch nut. Leave these hand tight for now. We will adjust them on the truck. If you do not have the 360-degree lighting package and just the standard rack, you will still install this bracket into this same location without the pod. Don't forget to put your washer on your bolt if not installing a pod. Before we can install our rear extrusion and valance, we need to take our rack and slide it all the way back. This will ensure that our extrusion will clear the shark fin antenna found on most Tacomas. Taking a 1/4-inch by 5/8 long bolt, we will install a washer. Then we will grab our rear valance assembly and slide it into position. With our valance in position, we will install the bolt into the extrusion. Install the second bolt. Now we will move to the other side and bolt the extrusion in. Next, we will take another 5/8 long bolt, install our washer, reach behind our valance, and line up our mount. The bolt will thread through the side panel and into the threads on the rear mount. If you have the economy rack or premium rack without the 360 lighting, there are only 2 more extrusions to install. You will need your 1/4-inch by 5/8 long bolts, 8 of each, and 8 1/4-inch washers. To complete your installation, install your extrusion with hardware in this location here and this location here. You will now have all of your extrusions installed on the rack and can move forward to the tightening sequence. For premium 360 racks that have our side light pod option, we will now show you how to assemble the side pod mounts and put the final 2 extrusions in. You will need your last 2 extrusions. You will need your 20-watt scene pods. You will have your 4 pod mounting brackets, 2 left and 2 right. The tools you will need are a 10mm wrench, a number 4 Allen, and the Allen that was included with your pod hardware. The hardware needed are 8 1/4" by 5/8 long bolts, 8 1/4" by 1/2" long bolts, 8 T-slot nuts, and 16 1/4" washers. To get prepared to install our pod brackets, we need to lay them out on our extrusions. Shown here, you have a left and a right installed on each extrusion. The small 1/4" holes on the mounts are pointed out towards the end of the extrusion. Moving further down the extrusion, you need to ensure your mounts are installed in the same configuration. Each extrusion should have 2 mounts on one side. Now that we know the location of our mounts, we will install our T-slot nuts. Each mount gets 2 T-slot nuts. We will now take a 1/4" by 1/2" long bolt, install our washer, put our mount in position, and install our bolt. Leave these hand tight so we may make adjustments. Before we install these on the truck, we want to go ahead and measure and locate their position and get them tightened down. It will save us a lot of trouble. Measure from the edge of the mount to the end of the extrusion. The measurement is 1 7/8 of an inch. With our extrusion assembly in hand, line up the pod mount in line with the cutout, slide it into position, and install your bolt and washer as you've done on previous steps. Before we can put our pod in, we're going to go ahead and tighten our extrusion down all the way. With our extrusion tight, we can now install our pod. Take your pod with the mounting hole in the upward position, slide the wire through, and put the pod in between the mounting brackets. Using the hardware that was included with your pods, slide the bolt through, then install your lock washer and your nut. Go ahead and snug up the bolts. Before torquing all the way and your bolts are snug, aim your pod to your desired location. Then put the final torque on your hardware. We will repeat this step in all 4 positions. Now that we have installed all the pieces of our rack, we can put on our last bit of hardware and do our tightening sequence. If you have an economy rack, skip past this initial step and move forward through the tightening sequence. For the premium racks, we're going to go ahead and install the knob onto our adjustable light cover. Simply take your knob and thread it onto the stud of your light cover. Now that our knob is in place, we're going to tighten down all of our side panel bolts, starting in the front, moving towards the back. For the premium racks, we will now tighten our rear valance. Start with your inside 2 bolts and work your way toward the outside. Now that the rack is all tight to itself, it's time to center it from the left to the right or passenger to driver side. Taking your tape measure, you're going to measure from the side panel to a point of reference on the roof. Most people will choose to use this line right here. Simply measure both sides and adjust it until they are the same. Once we center our rack, we can now tighten our 2 1/4-inch bolts on the bottom of the extrusion. This is a tight space. You will need a lot of patience. After tightening the rear mounts, we can now tighten our middle mounts. This bracket can move in here, so straighten it out and then tighten your bolts. With all of our rear and middle mounts tight, we can now adjust our rack forward to backward. What we want to do is push our rack back so that we get a nice seal along the roof with our weather stripping here. Don't push too hard to push your roof in. Simply slide your rack back till it sets nice and tight on your roof. With our rack in its final position, starting with the middle mounts, go ahead and tighten your M6 down to your cab. After you tighten the middle mount, move backwards to your rear mount. The second mount on the rear mount is underneath the extrusion. You're going to need to use your 10mm wrench. Last, we're going to tighten the 2 bolts on our front mount. A very helpful tool to save you a lot of time on your front mount is a swivel for your ratchet. If you do not have one of these, you can use a 10mm wrench. However, you're going to be here for a little bit of time. After tightening the final mounts on our roof rack, that completes our installation. For our premium roof rack customers, you have the adjustable LED cover. To adjust your cover, loosen your knobs, move it to the desired position, and tighten your knobs. Don't forget to do the other side. Thank you for watching. Please visit CaliRaisedLED.com for all of your LED and off-road needs. Thank you.